Hello everyone, I'm the storyteller, and today I'm here to help you have a restful sleep. I know you're using this video to drift off more easily, so relax, unwind, and let the story guide you into your dreams. Before we begin, let me know where you're from and what time you're watching this video. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any of the exciting stories in the future. My name is Leo. I'm not going to lie, life's been confusing lately. College senior year is looming, and I have no idea what I'm going to do after. My family situation is a disaster. My old high school friends have grown into people I barely recognize, and my hometown feels like a dead end. It's like I'm running in circles, searching for something, anything, to give my life direction. Last year, I found myself in Berlin, hoping the change of scenery might spark something inside me. One night I ended up in a bar called Ruya. I wasn't with anyone. I didn't mind, though solitude had become familiar to me. As I downed my last drink and prepared to leave, I patted my pockets and realized I'd lost my apartment keys. Just my luck. I stumbled out into the chilly Berlin night, cursing myself, and headed toward my apartment despite knowing I was locked out. The streets were eerily quiet, and a cold rain started to fall, soaking through my jacket. I wandered aimlessly, debating my next move when I spotted a bridge. It wasn't ideal, but it would keep me dry for the night. I settled beneath it, shivering as I tried to relax. But then faint voices echoed across the river. I squinted through the rain and saw a group of men on the opposite bank. There were 5 of them, clustered around a small boat. They hadn't noticed me. As I watched, briefcases and duffel bags began changing hands, and it didn't take long for me to realize I was witnessing a drug deal. I froze, adrenaline suddenly kicking in. I knew I should leave, but moving might make them notice me. So I stayed still, praying they'd finish quickly and go. Then things took a turn. One of the men shouted something in German and pulled a gun on another guy. Everything went silent. The man with the gun barked more commands, and soon the victim was stripped of his clothes and belongings. It was clear he was being set up. I had to get out of there. I slowly stood up, trying not to make a sound. But in my drunken state, I wasn't exactly stealthy. One of the men suddenly pointed in my direction and yelled, "Da ist jemand." There's someone there. Panic shot through me, and, without thinking, I took off running. I could hear them shouting behind me, but the only words that stuck were "don't shoot." I didn't stop to look back. I just ran. My lungs burned, my legs were on fire, and eventually I vomited from exhaustion. But I didn't care. I had escaped. They never chased me. I was lucky. If they had, I wouldn't be alive to tell this story. Sometimes, when I'm lying in bed, I think about that night. How close I came to death. How, in that moment, I was forced to run from my fate. But now I wonder, am I still running from something? Or have I been running all along, not just from danger, but from life itself? It was a typical Friday afternoon at my high school, the kind where time crawled and I just wanted to make it through the day. Emma, my closest friend, walked beside me, chatting about something that I couldn't focus on. My mind was cluttered with the usual stress: school, home. My foster parents were far from kind. Their presence weighed on me even when I wasn't around them. As we passed the lunchroom, An urge hit me. I needed to use the bathroom. I asked Emma if she needed to go, and she shook her head, saying she'd wait outside for me. So I headed in alone. The bathroom was eerily empty. Normally, this one was always busy, yet now it felt abandoned. It struck me as strange, but I shrugged it off, choosing a stall. I sat down, hoping for just a moment of peace. Not long after, I heard the entrance door open and close. Then ... nothing, no footsteps, no sound of someone entering a stall. It was just silence. I figure it was someone hiding, maybe avoiding a teacher, so I didn't think much of it. After finishing up, I stood and noticed the usual scribbles on the wall's rants about teachers and random quotes. Then the door creaked open again, and I assumed whoever had come in had just left. As I exited the stall, Emma was waiting for me, but she looked ... off. Her eyes were wide, her face pale, like she'd just seen something she couldn't process. I frowned, asking what was wrong. She hesitated, then asked, "Who is that in the stall with you?" My skin prickled, chills crawling up my spine. "What are you talking about? No one was in there with me." Emma's face remained serious and like her usual joking self. "I'm not messing with you," she said firmly. "I came in because I realized I did need to go, but when I walked toward the stalls ... I saw someone standing right behind you. Their shoes were nearly touching the back of yours." My heart thudded in my chest. That's impossible. There was no one in there. I didn't hear anyone. Emma shook her head, her voice low and steady. "I saw them. They were there, standing so close to you, like they were waiting for you to notice." I felt nauseous. I heard the door open ... but no one moved. I thought they left. "No," Emma whispered. "No one left. No one else was in there except whoever was standing behind you." A cold weight settled over me. I didn't believe in ghosts, spirits, or anything paranormal, but the way Emma looked at me, the fear in her voice, it made me question everything. The bathroom door had opened and closed twice, but no one had come or gone, at least not in a way I could explain. I went straight to find a teacher, telling them everything, but they brushed it off. It didn't happen, they assured me. Emma's probably just pulling a prank. But Emma wasn't the type. When she looked me dead in the eyes and repeated word for word what she saw, I knew this wasn't a joke. Something had been in that stall with me, and though I tried to push it to the back of my mind, the memory never left me ... It's been years now, and I'm still haunted by the thought that someone was standing behind me, unseen, but close enough to touch. Years ago, I moved into a quaint little house in a quiet town for my first real job. It was perfect for me, 2 small bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and just enough space to host a few friends now and then. Michelle, the landlord, was friendly and accommodating, and I felt comfortable renting from her. For the first few weeks, everything seemed fine. I settled into my routine work, come home, relax. But then things started to get strange. One night, after a long day, I heard a knock at the door. It was too late for anyone to be visiting. Curious but cautious, I asked, "Who's it?" No one responded. I waited, my heart beating faster, but eventually I just walked away from the door. I convinced myself it was probably a prank or someone knocking on the wrong house. The next morning, as I was leaving for work, I noticed something taped to the storm door, a bright yellow note with bold handwriting. It read, "Hello, beautiful." My stomach twisted. It wasn't a compliment. It felt invasive. I remembered the knock from the night before and immediately knew the two incidents were connected. That night, as I cooked dinner, it happened again, another knock, this time earlier in the evening. The silence after the knock unnerved me more than anything. There was no sound, no footsteps retreating. I stood by the door, not daring to speak or open it. Without a peephole or window, there was no way to see who was on the other side. I called my parents. My dad, a retired police officer, told me there wasn't much the police could do unless they caught the person in the act. He advised me to avoid going outside at night and not answer the door until we figured out what was going on. The next morning, another note was stuck to the door. This time it read, "I like watching you." A chill ran down my spine. I took a picture of the note and sent it to both my parents and Michelle. She sounded shocked and assured me she had no stalkers or creepy exes, but I wasn't convinced. I decided to leave a note of my own. "If you're looking for Michelle, she doesn't live here. I'm reporting this to the police. If you keep coming." It gave me a fleeting sense of control. Maybe the stalker would realize their mistake and stop. That night I lay in bed, heart racing, listening for any sign of knocking. But to my surprise, the house was silent. I finally slept, hoping that my note had scared them off. The following morning I went to remove my note, but when I pulled it off the door, I realized it wasn't my note at all. It was a new one. "I'm not looking for Michelle. I'm looking for you. My name, I like watching you." The world seemed to close in around me. They knew my name. They weren't after Michelle, they were after me. I sent the new note to my dad, who immediately packed a bag and came to stay with me. That night, we called the police together. When the officer arrived, my dad's presence as a former cop helped move things along, but there wasn't much they could do. After the officer left, my dad sat outside on the porch for hours, keeping watch while I tried to sleep. The stalker didn't return that night. Within a few days, I packed up my things and moved out. Michelle was understanding and let me break the lease. Thankfully, the stalker didn't follow me to my new home, and I began to feel safe again. I never found out who it was. It could have been someone in town, or maybe even a coworker with a twisted sense of attention. But whoever it was, they left a lasting shadow in my mind, a shadow of fear that, even now, sometimes returns when I hear a knock at the door.